And I'm the special education teacher. My program has about 25 kids this year. Almost all of my students are in general education classes almost all of the time. I have one section of English, and it's a mixed group of kids. It's a very, very small class, and basically they're kids who I don't think will make it at this point in general ed English because of the pace for the most part, and the heavy language load. Some of these students have a terrible time processing language, and it doesn't matter what language it is, Spanish or English. I have a student who has such significant language processing issues that he can't communicate with his parents in Spanish. He just doesn't have enough of it. I don't think there was a lot of conversation at home when he was little, and then he did more conversation at school. So as a result, so language is a huge issue. Auditory processing. The kids in this particular group that I have right now have some cognitive issues too. So in general, in my special education program, I am really interested in students advocating for themselves. Self-advocacy is something we talk about. All of my students lead their own IEP meetings. So they really get a chance to advocate for themselves in a real context. We develop a script, and when parents and administrators and psychologists and teachers and other service providers come in and sit at the table, my student says, "Hi, we're here to talk about me."
Yeah, wow, that's great.
And starts the conversation from there. Here are my strengths, here are things that I need help with, here's how you can help me. So they're familiar with the idea of self-advocacy, and that's where I thought I would start in bringing the upstander lesson to them, because they know a little bit about advocating for themselves. So it seemed a natural transition to talk about advocating for others. So to start out the unit, we just did some writing on self-advocacy. So let's see. Oh, so this one.
You're just standing in front of it.
I'm in front of it. I never use an Elmo. I'm just going to tell you this right now. So new to me. I'm going to just kind of look at work, and we'll talk kind of as we go, and then we'll look at the big thing that we led up to at the end, which is our Glogster. So students were defining self-advocacy when you speak up for yourself, when you ask for things you need. Why is it important? It is important because you might not like it when someone is picking on you. And then he talks about when my brother was getting my PS3, I had to tell him to get it back. Let me see. I'm going to look at another student's definition of self-advocacy here. This student says, what is self-advocacy? Is standing up for yourself, what you have a right to, asking for things without the help of others. So, asking for themselves. It is important. It will help you in a job and make things more easy with employers and workers around you. A time I had to advocate for myself was when I was at the taco truck. I forgot my order, and I had to ask her, what happened to my order? So we're going to skip to the next page to do another definition of self-advocacy. Is to defend yourself from a situation or speak for yourself. I speak for myself when I'm sick or not feeling well. A time I self-advocated for myself was when I was at the doctor and I had a cold and it was not going away. I spoke for myself and told the doctor to give me some medication. And in fact, my students are put in the position, of being translators for their parents at the doctor an awful lot, and that's a lot of language processing, important information too, and they feel like it's a very uncomfortable position for them to be in that advocate role for their parents.
Yeah.
And we also talked about how whenever there is someone at the hospital, someone needs to be there to advocate for that person because so many things are happening and somebody has to be there paying attention. Okay, so now go back. The next thing I did was talk about being a bystander. And I was saying earlier, this ended up being like a bit of a confessional for us, you know, as we sat around and talked about what is a bystander, what does it look like, have you ever been one? And we all have. And so students had conversations and spent time sharing out about times when they stood by and watched somebody being bullied or being hurt. And we wrote a little bit about it. So when some kid got picked on and I just walked away, this guy says, let's see, a person that does nothing to stop the situation but just looks at the problem. We do that sometimes in education. And oh yeah, so I think that's all for those definitions. We did a little chart, so these are just kind of random pieces of info. Oh yeah. So we did some charting of the difference between a bystander and an upstander. Someone who does nothing when someone is hurt versus when you help someone. And I thought this was interesting. If you turn to this page right here, this student struggles with English so much. You can really see her EL happening here. Bystander, stay, staring. Don't call, don't tell, to not get involved.
Oh, that's involved.
To laugh. An upstander, to help, to defend, to show how to help. Then we had this conversation about why somebody would not want to be an upstander. What are the risks involved? And that's a really touchy subject for teenagers. There's a lot at risk socially. And students are so concerned about their status, how other kids perceive them, and what kind of retaliation might take place. Kids don't want to be a snitch. At the same time, you know, they want to be on a campus that feels safe. And so that really generated a lot of great conversation too. And once we really started looking at upstanders from history and just different examples of upstander, the risk always kind of floated to the top of the conversation because in every instance, there was something at risk. There was something at stake for the upstander. So some of the things they said about that was because they don't want to get hurt, they don't care about them. Maybe some people just don't care. Why not be an upstander? You might get hurt. You might make the problem more bigger. Might make everything more worst. And then this person who said scared, afraid, involve in bullying. So maybe you're already involved in bullying and you don't want to, you don't see that there's a problem. Then this person wrote, what does it mean to advocate? Once we stopped talking about advocating for ourselves and advocating for others, we did some writing on that too. And this person says, an advocate is to speak or write in favor or support. A time I advocated for somebody was at the hospital. A man needed help. He was not sick or injured. He was just looking for his injured friend that was in the hospital. This man was Hispanic and he did not speak any English. So I translated for him in English to the nurses. So when I developed the activity I wanted to do with the students, I created a list of criteria, which is this right here. So I said, we're going to do some research on an upstander from history. Look how bad I am at this thing. And these are the things I want you to find. And my students didn't really know what these things were. So we did a lot of learning this language. And we watched some really cool videos. I'll tell you about in a sec too. So here are the things that we needed to do. We needed to define upstander. Then once we selected the upstander we were going to research, we needed to describe the context of the situation, the issue, who is the target or the victim, who is the perpetrator, the bad guy, the bully, what was the upstander's role in the context or issues, what traits or actions did the upstander demonstrate, what were the risks, what were the outcomes, and then I wanted students to write a personal reflection. And these are all brief little pieces of writing because they had to research it and they had to make sense of it. Is this the issue? Is this the context? It was a good experience for them. To get familiar with this terminology, we did a few things. One thing we did was I brought in some videos from YouTube from a TV show called What Would You Do? Have you guys seen this?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Perfect for this.
It is. It's perfect.
It's perfect because they create scenarios really where someone's either going to be an upstander or they're not.
Right. Yes.
So someone is clearly being bullied or victimized in these scenarios. And so we were able to watch a few of these little clips and identify those components. What was the issue? What was the context? Who was the perpetrator? Who was the target? What were the outcomes and so forth? And the kids had a great time doing that. And they're really good at it. They're really adept at pointing out all of those things. And it helped them to start using those terms in a way that made sense. So we did a little work with this terminology. And we did some drawing, some writing. So I like to share these because I think these are really funny. So this guy right here, what is the term upstander? An upstander, someone that gets involved. The upstander helped the girl be safe. Yeah, you come here. No. An upstander is a person present but not involved. I mean, the bystander. The bystander did not help the old lady. And you see she's got the little cart there, and he says, she could do it. He's all right. This one is human rights. People have rights. And this guy says, I have rights. People in the USA have human rights. Not exactly what I was looking for. Like all humans have human rights, not just in America. But we talked about that. So here are some more examples. A bystander, a person who is present at an event without participating in it. And this says, big kids bullied the little boy and made him cry. And adults just stir and walk away. Stare and walk away. Human rights, rights which a person is inherently entitled simply because he or she is a human being, even outside of the U.S. So here we have every human has the right to say yes or no. I don't know what their signs say. Every human has rights. So they're getting that. And then I'll show you, we also looked at the Declaration of Human Rights. So here's some more examples of self-advocacy. This one they got, it says refers to the civil rights movements for people with developmental disabilities. It's a little bit bigger than that. But this person says, can I have some notes, please? Okay, because that's how we do self-advocacy at high school. Okay, you got those notes? So advocate to speak or write in favor. I help others that need the attention. And let's see, what is this one? Human traits. Oh, traits. Human traits are personal characteristics. My dad and I have
The same skills.
The same
skin color. It's a little bad copy there.
My mother.
So yeah, did we cover all these?
I bet they had a lot of fun with that.
They really did. At first, They did not want to draw the pictures or write the sentences, and I forced it. I'm like, we're not just writing definitions. I need to know that you get it. Oh, okay, so these ones we haven't found. I'm kind of doing them backwards here. Sacrifices. Are you with me here? See a pig? The kid sacrifices the pig so his family could eat. And you see him, poor kid, sacrificing the pig with a handgun. The kid had empathy for his friend. The adult decided to intervene in the argument. You can't do that, he says. And then where is the other one we did see?
Perpetrator?
With the perpetrator in jail, yes. The perpetrator is in jail. And then this guy, his target was to pass the math test. I will say you can see where there's something missing there. That was risk, where it said he risked buying beer even though he was 17. I decided not to do that. So, but we're getting familiar with those terms. They really got a hold of them, and they were using them in the video and using them in their little definitions. And then I even said if you want to, if you could write some type of a scenario about a person who was being bullied or where an upstander intervened. And so Freddie wrote this little piece. George was from Africa. He was a hard worker and an honest person. George was accused of stealing a car. His human rights were not being followed because he was black. Was discriminated against because he was poor. He did not know about advocacy. George needed a lawyer to advocate for him. His lawyer took some risks by trying to get George out of jail. The lawyer had empathy for George and made sacrifices by donating his time to help. It's been pro bono.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Good use of all of the
right? He got a handle of it. And that's the EL kid right there. So now I'm going to hook up my little Glogster situation and show you what the students did with that. Interacting in meaningful ways, exchanging ideas, interacting with written language, supporting opinions, persuading others, listening, presenting, and writing. And then these were the words, the language objectives I was interested in. Self-advocacy, advocacy, traits, upstander, empathy, all of the words we just looked at. And then, ultimately, I wanted to lead up to this writing technology piece, using technology to publish. This is out of the Common Core ELA writing standards, taking advantage of technology's capacity to link and display dynamically. So you'll see one of my examples kind of does that, and the other one doesn't. And I want to say it's not really all the students' fault. There is some clunkiness about our internet access that made it where we couldn't upload videos onto our Glogster. Even when I saved them in MP4 format and tried to upload them that way, it just like took so long, it would never stick on there. But audio did on one of them. I really like that. So to conduct research, to answer a question, and then to make strategic use of digital media. I really like that. That's a speaking and listening. That when they print out, they have these little QR codes on the bottom. And at first I thought, well, that's silly because the poster's right there. Why are you going to have a QR code of the poster? And then Peter made it very clear to me because that's what brings it to life. If you have your device and the poster is hanging on the wall, you do the little scan, and then all of a sudden the poster is alive on your device. And if it's got links or audio or video, it's right there for you. So neato.
Wow.
So, okay, so here we go. We're going to look at Malala. So, isn't this cute? I'm so proud of them for figuring this stuff out too. So my girls grouped up and researched Malala. And I wonder if we're going to be able to hear audio. I hadn't thought of that either. Very quiet. Okay. So I can have the girls read for me. Maybe.
Context. The girls can't go to school because the Taliban believe girls should not be educated. upstander, a person who stands up for his or her belief, a person who does what they think is right. Malala Yousafzai is known for her education and women's rights. Malala decided she would live with the encouragement of her father. She began believing that she was stronger than the things that scared her.
Wow.
That's huge.
Isn't that great?
I love that sentence.
I love that way they came up with that too. Stronger than the things that scared her.
Wow.
I love that so much.
Let's see.
You can let them know that they have written about someone I admire so much in ways better than I have. That sentence is wonderful.
Yay! All right, so here's risks she did.
Start again. October 9, 2012, Malala Yousafzai was shot in the head and neck in an assassination attempt by Taliban gunmen. The Taliban made it clear its intent to kill Yousafzai and her father.
So,
Malala Yousafzai was the first person to win the Pakistan First National Youth Peace Prize. Malala Yousafzai started speaking about education as early as September 2008. She spoke at the local prison club. How their Taliban take away my basic rights to educate.
I was really stoked how they put the quote in there, and that was a good quote. How dare you? Yeah. And it was just coincidence that we had a couple of months back read an article about Malala and wrote about if we thought education was a burden or a privilege. Well, I made them write first, and then we read, and then they wrote again. So,
The issue was when she started to publicize through websites, printing papers, posting in newspaper.
so that wasn't exactly the issue.
No.
No. But I think they were able to identify a lot of the other things.
I think Malala is one very intelligent young lady who made a huge difference in her country. She is a very strong for standing up for her rights. Most girls like Malala would not have had the encouragement and support she had.
So, I'll show you the one our guys did. I had them work on this in pairs, and I suggest that any time you do a new technology like this, two heads are better than one, because there was so much problem solving and figuring out that had to happen. Let's see, how do I go back? Dashboard. And we'll go to, I think it's Gabe. So these guys were not able to get audio or video on here. They found a really nice video of a speech, but we couldn't get it on there. But you can see all of the different choices the boys made in terms of the type of, I don't even know what these things are called. Those little pieces of paper that they stuck their text on. So he says, an upstander is a person that helps other people that don't have anyone to speak up for themselves. They risk their life to help people that are in danger and been violated. So the context, segregation. The races were kept separate with separate hotels, bars, hospitals, toilets, parks, even telephone booths, and separate sections in libraries, cinemas, and restaurants with separate, I think this scrolls down, ticket windows and counters. So that was something we discovered too. I said, I like it better when your whole piece of text fits on the thing that we don't have to scroll.
But it makes it interactive.
It does. And they pointed that out too. Yeah. Often we get on these things and I give suggestions and they're like, is this your project? No, it's not. Yeah, that bites me sometimes, I'm just here to say. And then they kind of advocate for things that aren't really within their rights, like, I can wear my headphones all the time. It helps me concentrate. No. No, it doesn't. Okay, so issue. The law stated that black people could not sit in the front of the bus, even if the seats were empty. They were only allowed to sit in the unreserved seats in the back of the bus. They ended up narrowing it down to that specific issue so they could talk about the boycotts, because they were having a hard time deciding
That's a big issue.
what specifically, which outcome they wanted to focus on, what behaviors they wanted to talk about for the upstander. So his role, he was involved in leading the protest with the Montgomery bus boycott. The boycott lasted for 385 days. And then here's the outcome, the U.S. District Court ruling that ended segregation on all of the buses. And then the reflection. I would hate to live in a world that everything was separate with white and black people. Martin Luther King Jr. risked everything for his people. Oh, and then you see the perpetrator right here?
Yeah.
The U.S. government, racial people, KKK. And in doing this investigation, my students didn't realize that Mexican kids were segregated as well. That Mexican, there was like brown, you know. Yeah, so that was a learning experience for them to realize how far segregation spread.
I love your use of technology in helping the kids to showcase their learning, and so the amount of writing that they had to do for each piece wasn't overwhelming,
No.
but yet they did a lot of work
They did.
on here. But because I think you had it broken down into manageable chunks, they were so successsul.
Yeah, I think they respond. That's right. Go ahead. They respond really well to these little charty things that I make all the time, just like to give them a holding place for the thing.
Yeah.
So that if I find this one but I don't find that one, not all is lost.
Right.
Yeah. So what else? What do you see about the writing here?
You know, I think they really took in the vocabulary that you were trying to teach them. They really seemed to internalize that and embrace it and used it to good effect. Both in the Glogsters and in the little piece of writing that you showed us as well. I think they really took those words on board.
Well, I keep thinking, this is an EL writer, but I think what she's talking about fits what you guys are doing perfectly. And it's you and them, actually. It's you for them and it's them for each other. And that's Gibbons' issue of high challenge with high support.
Yeah.
Support.
Well, you know what I always think is these kids struggle with conventions and they've been beat up so badly about that. They have no confidence as writers, but they actually are quite capable of really intelligent conversations and thoughtful insights, and sometimes they're not given the opportunity to participate in that. So if I can provide these opportunities for them to notice how smart they are, notice how much they have to offer, even if they can't spell it correctly, I don't care, you know. I still think they're smart.
I think there's, you know, the amount of work, regardless of the writing for a moment, just setting the writing aside, the amount of work that goes into finding the right image, putting those images together, creating something that looks like a finished piece, which clearly these do. You know, the amount of work and decision making and the thought processes that go into that are remarkable in themselves. And then you add on the
Well, and how much they had to do to research the topic,
yeah,
you know, and
it's
finding
a
out.
very rigorous assignment.
I got a great deal of pleasure out of watching them just sit together. No, wait a minute, that doesn't go there, and like just really having to work it out.
Discussions that this must have, started, and then how they decided what they were going to write in each of these.
You can tell the girls are more kind of clean and linear, and the boys are kind of flopped on there.
But they had to negotiate with each other too. What do we want this to say? What do we want this to look like? And I think that even that negotiation lent itself to the conversation and discussion you wanted to have, because they were advocating even there for, well, I like this idea and I like this
That's
idea.
true.
And so having them to working with a partner that sometimes is a lot harder than just on your own.
Yeah.
I know where you said two heads are better than one to figure out the technology component, but in that, you know, you have to agree,
That's true, you do.
and that's a
You do.
skill.
And they had to practice these audio pieces several times before they
Yes,
felt
yes,
comfortable with the
Well,
Well, you
recording.
could hear on one.
She's like, oh, one more time.
Try it again. Let's do it again, and so that you could tell that they were really conscientious. They wanted to do such a great job. When did they make their Glogsters? Was this recent? Do you have a next
Yes,
step?
we did this since when we started, when we came back from Christmas,
Okay.
and with some interruptions like exit exam
Right.
and some things like that. So we didn't get to do this solid until then, but
Have they asked to make another one? Were they excited by
well,
this?
so now we're the next big thing we do is I take my English class and we plan orientation activities for the incoming ninth graders, the incoming freshmen. And so it's their job to teach them about high school.
Oh, neat.
So the expectations, the rules, how you get help, some advice, some tips. And when we printed out the Glogsters that had the QR codes, we started talking about how fun it would be to do like a scavenger hunt all over the school with QR codes so that my kids could place the QR code with information or a question about the school and the visitors could put on their
Oh, how
Oh,
wow.
fun.
and like follow the next clue or whatever. So, and Kim's hooking me up with something that a teacher has already designed online that will make my life easier with that
Amazing.
thing.
all of you.
Oh, okay.
But they were like, well, can we do a Glogster for the 8th graders? Yes, so
Oh,
they're
wow.
already thinking about that.
Amazing.
You can do whatever you want.
Great job.
Great job.